Hello and welcome to this episode of Own the Journey. And today we are in sunny Florida and we're super excited to meet with Mr. John Spence. John, you're a legend in the business world. You have been ranked as one of the top 100 thought leaders in America. I'm super excited for our conversation today. I'm sure that there are some of our viewers who have not had a chance to hear what you do and some of the great leadership that you bring to the table. Would you share just a little bit about your history, how you got into the consulting gig? You're an author. You're a professor. I mean, you do.
I made it all up. No, I'll give you the quick thumbnail because there's an interesting beginning to it.
Yeah.
After failing out of college on the first try, I graduated from the University of Florida here in Gainesville, Florida, where we are. Number 3 in the country in journalism and communications. Went to work for the Rockefellers, and at the age of 26, I was named CEO of one of their international foundations.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't know what I was doing at all. Maybe still don't, but and did that for a couple years. Went over to become the CEO of a strategy firm. And now for about 28 years, I've been an independent consultant, author, trainer. Got clients from the Fortune 10 to startups.
Wow.
Normally travel a couple hundred days a year worldwide. So it's been a fun run.
And everything shifted over the last couple of years in terms of how you consult and what that means, just like everybody in the world.
Yeah, almost overnight. We had seen it coming. We knew that eventually there'd be more online and virtual speeches and things. I had done a couple in Amsterdam and things like that, but it basically shortened it down to about 1 week.
Yeah.
On a Monday, I had flown home, and on the next Monday, the entire company was virtual.
Yeah.
I was mentioning before we got started, I used to travel about 217 days a year in 2019.
Wow.
In 2020, 1 day.
Yeah.
A 1-hour drive up for a strategy meeting. But I've been fascinated that it's actually helped our business expand. And someone asked me a great question not too long ago, what's been great about the pandemic? I now, on an average, last night I was doing an interview in Bangkok. This afternoon I've got one in New Zealand. So it's expanded my reach truly globally on the same day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And as a part of all of that, you get to see some really interesting dynamics around strategy, international businesses that do it well and don't do it well. I'm sure you've got some crazy stories, but when you summarize it all, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that companies have, or what do they do wrong when it comes to strategy? Because so many companies, candidly, they just get it wrong.
Yeah. A couple of things. Number one, they try to make it too complex. Too much. You need a fair amount of analysis. I think one of the other mistakes is they don't get enough customer data to truly understand what their customers want. But they try to overcomplicate it and put too many factors in there and have 11 strategic initiatives and 47 tactics. That doesn't work. 3 or 4. The other thing is they don't put enough time into the strategic execution thought around it.
So how are they going to get the work done?
How are they going to get the work done? It's fun to go away for a retreat, and play golf and do all that stuff. But when you get back to the office, then the drudgery of actually having to execute the plan comes in, and that's one of the biggest problems. They do the once a year thing.
Yeah.
They're all excited. They come back. They put the thing away, and it doesn't get it. Actually, I've been teaching strategy at Wharton for about 22 years.
Wow.
For an executive level class, and every year I ask my group, what percentage of companies that have a good plan, that have a good strategy, they've got a great product, service, great people, what percentage of them effectively execute their plan? The answer is about 5%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all the work, all the planning, and 5% get it right. That's unbelievable. So the real truth of why the strategy fails isn't in the strategy, it's just in actually doing the work.
Yep.
We call it getting shit done.
Yeah, get shit done, exactly. Strategy basically boils down to a couple things. One, all strategy, the heart of it is just the allocation of scarce resources. And then to create a winning strategy, there's only 4 key elements. Number one, you've got to bring something that's unique and compelling to the marketplace, that your customer values very highly. They're happy to pay whatever reasonable price for, that is difficult, if not impossible, to copy, and that you can execute it with excellence every day. If you create a strategy that meets those 4 characteristics, you've got something that's defendable and extremely powerful in the marketplace.
Wow, I think that is remarkable. Okay, so the first thing that you said is a unique product, something or a unique service.
Like our delicious beers.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, baby.
Yeah. And I think in today's world, in the midst of all the noise, it's a little bit challenging to develop a unique product, or at least for people to know that it's unique. What have you seen people do well and not so well when it comes to that?
Fantastic question. The first thing is it doesn't need to be wildly unique. It doesn't have to have every bell, whistle, whiz bang, everything. It just needs to be unique in a few areas that are valuable to the customer. One of the things people don't understand about strategy is if you just get parity of 80% with your competition, you take all those decisions off the table. If the price is roughly the same and the delivery is roughly the same and the products, all I have to do is find one or two areas that are important to the customer and be a little bit better there. I can be a lot better, that's great, but a lot of strategies on we have to be totally unique. No, just let's win in a few places that are important to customer, and by creating that strategy and marketing it, that's how you create, we're creating the decision-making criteria for the customer and putting it in our favor.
Yeah, so how have you seen companies get that feedback from their customers extremely well? I mean, we're all surveyed to death in today's world. It's hard to always get a customer on the phone. What are the companies doing that are doing it well?
Well, very few companies do it well. Out of even other companies I work with, probably 90% of them are pathetic at actually listening to their customer.
Wow.
But I've got a ton of phrases I use. Whoever owns the voice of the customer owns the marketplace. So you do the surveys, you do the online stuff, maybe a VIP group, new customer group. The most powerful thing I've ever used with my clients is getting a group of their ideal customers. And if it's a company like yours, it's not thousands, it's a couple dozen or maybe 10 that make up the bulk of your business. And I've done this for a couple clients, bring them in someplace like this and say, all right, I've got 6 of your top customers here that represent 70% of your revenues. I've got the entire company in the back of the room. I just ask them 4 questions. Number 1, why specifically do you do business with this company? What are the top 3 or 4 reasons?
Wow.
When all the customers answer that, you've got your marketing program, you've got your sales, you've got your ID. It's all there because they'll roughly say the same things, and they're telling you this is why I spend money with you. I ask them, what would it take to get more business? What would it take to lose business? And what would it take to get all of your business? And when they answer those questions in front of the entire company, I'm like, okay, here's everything you need. Do these things, do them well, never do these things. If you do these stuff, they'll give you more business, and if you do this, they're going to fire you. I've got companies that started out at 3 million that are now at 400, 500 million, and that was a base question they asked that allowed them to build a strategy that specifically met their customers' needs.
And literally bring the whole company together and put the customers on stage and ask those questions so that everybody hears the same thing, gets absolute clarity. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the people in front of the ones who pay all the bills went out and listen to them.
Listen to them. That's exactly right. Wow. Well, I think one of the challenges that organizations have is trying to figure out how much time to spend in strategy. I mean, so like when do you update it? Once a year is kind of the normal thing. We do ours once a quarter. We're kind of revisiting it, making sure that we're on track for the year and things like that. What would you say the best practice is as it relates to really visiting that again, making sure that, 1, do we want to continue with the strategy that we developed 6 months ago, and 2, are we doing well, or where are we at on it?
So let me answer that in 2 parts.
Okay.
I'm going to answer your second one is, do we need to change a strategy? I think a lot of companies make a mistake by pivoting too often, and I hate the word pivot, but I just used it. But changing constantly. Oh, shiny red ball, squirrel, let's do this, that, and the other. I have a real clear phrase that I work with the clients: only change a strategy when the customer demands it, when the marketplace demands it. Otherwise, you get no traction. So how often should you revisit it? That's all about cadence. And this is one of the reasons that companies don't execute their strategies well, is their cadence is once a year. Not a good cadence. No. So you should be, and we're going to go all the way down to the front lines here, you should be talking about it weekly in meetings. How we, maybe 15 or 20 minutes of a meeting. How are we doing on that? Monthly, you should have probably a 2-hour meeting, between teams, and especially the senior management team, to say, how are we doing? Quarterly, half a day. Middle of the year, at least a full day, and then that last of the year, the big planning thing, a day and a half, 2 days. A key thing with that big retreat is I think you need a facilitator, because if the CEO starts or somebody starts to overpower it, you need someone who doesn't work in the company to be able to
back
it down without fear of getting fired next week when they show up at the office.
Yeah.
So using an outside facilitator just keep things moving, I think is a great idea.
And do you think just once a year is enough for that, or doing it once a quarter? I've had some companies who believe that they really need that support every quarter.
Yeah, several of my clients use someone every quarter.
Yeah. And what have you found when you come in? I know you facilitated many of those conversations. What have you found are the best ways to execute those conversations so that you get, I've seen some brilliant speakers of late say that the CEO's job in those environments is to speak last. And so beyond that, what would you say are some of the best ways that people need to execute in that environment?
Well, there's one that I use specifically that most people don't use, and then the other one. The first one that's most important is psychological safety. I've got to have a room, or the company has to be in a place where people are willing to speak up, to tell the CEO or one of the senior managers, I don't think this is working, or that isn't a great idea, or I don't know if that data is accurate. So if you don't have that real candor and honesty and trust, there's no way you can have a robust conversation about what really needs to happen.
I understand.
The other thing that I do is I try to do all the pre-work, the SWOT analysis, the questions before the meeting, so that you get to a lot of them, they're like, let's put this on the wall, I got a sticky over here, and write on the flip charts. I ask all those questions a week or a couple weeks out. I compile it into a report, then we start the planning session by let's read what everybody already said. That way we don't get groupthink, somebody doesn't overpower it, it's all there on paper. Then we start that process with all the data pre-done, so we don't waste a half a day on brainstorming.
Right, yeah. And so like any good meeting, you're doing a lot of the prep in advance to make sure when you get in there.
We hit the ground running.
Yeah, solving actual problems. That's awesome. So when you're in those strategy sessions and you see those CEOs or those executive leaders, or you have seen the teams that work with those people where they do become a little overpowering, where maybe there's not quite the psychological safety that they need, how should they handle it? How do you handle it? From a facilitator's perspective, I'm sure it's a little bit easier when you say, hang on, but not everybody has that opportunity. How have you seen it go well?
Set ground rules before the meeting very clear. You've got a 2-minute limit, and there's two ways we do this. Is A, you set a limit on how much you can talk, and then we also make sure that everybody else talks. So you've got those people sitting in the corner and aren't going to say anything. And the thing to do then is when someone brings up something that's awkward or uncomfortable, for the CEO to say thank you. I don't like what you just told me. I'm not happy about this, but I am extremely happy that you told me, because now that we understand the problem, we can fix it together. If the CEO and senior management team is strongly encouraging, I forget whether it was at Amazon or Microsoft when I was working with them, they said, people are safe, ideas are not. You can say anything. We're going to rip the idea apart, but we're never going to attack you, and there'll be no pressure, no stress, no retribution. If people believe that, you'll get that level of honesty. If not, it'll be one or two senior people talking through the whole thing, and the rest of the people will be like, it happened again.
Yeah, here we go.
Yep.
Yeah, we call those courageous conversations inside of our organization. I love the idea, though, that people are safe, but ideas are not. So we're going to challenge everything, even if it's the CEO's idea.
Exactly.
And you've got to create that environment.
And we say, this is what we want you to do. Even if it's a great idea, one of the things, a great thing we see in strategy too, is all throughout our lives through school, we're taught to find the one right answer. You want to get an A on the test, there's one right answer. There is not one right answer in strategy. In a lot of business, there are multiple answers that could be right. So one of the things a good facilitator says is, wonderful idea, fantastic. Let's put it over here. Now we're going to find another great idea. Because people jump on board, I love it, let's go, let's do that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yes, especially if it's the CEO's idea. Love it! But the truth is, you have to be able to stop and say, that was a fantastic idea, but I'm sure there's another fantastic idea, and it's typically the combination of 2 or 3 good ideas that yield the best idea, best possible solution.
Wow, okay, very good. When you break down the executive team, one of the things that a lot of organizations I think struggle with is who needs to be in the room. when they're doing this. Obviously, in our organization, as an example, we do a survey of everybody inside of our organization. We get the SWOT analysis. We do, what do you like about us? What do you hate about us? What can we do better? What can we not? And then we bring that to the table. But when it comes to the actual strategy session, how big should the group be?
The group should compromise the people that make the major decisions in the organization. Now, that may not be a senior level person. It might be a divisional head or a department head or a team member. And people who, here's the key part, understand the business and understand the future of the business. I've got some clients or companies I work with, the CFO does not show up for the strategy meeting. They turn in a report. They're great at numbers. They don't understand the competition, the industry, how the business works. They understand the numbers incredibly well.
Sure.
But they add no real value from a strategic standpoint.
Interesting.
Yeah, but they might go down to someone, and I don't like to call it lower, someplace else in the organization, somebody who's a great strategic thinker, talks to customers, is crazy about the industry, reading, studying, look at the competition. That person can bring great value. And then also looking outside of what we would know, like an HR director, if your company's growing and you're looking at expanding, let's say over the next 5 years, your HR director should be in there because strategically they're creating the success of your company by hiring the right people. So if we've got a strategy that says we want to be in 18 locations or go to China or whatever it might be, I need to have the HR director there so that they're saying, all right, who do I need to hire? What's my pipeline? What skills and talents do we need to develop now?
Right.
What's our succession planning? But a lot of folks in different things don't think about the big company, so they even if their title's big, they shouldn't be in the meeting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so I heard a couple of things I want to circle back on there. First was, it doesn't matter at what quote unquote level you're at in the organization, but if you're the subject matter expertise, in other words, if you're managing logistics and you have 25 divisions of an organization and that does unique things, you need to have representatives at least who understand those different 25 sections so that they can champion those causes within the strategic sessions.
Yeah, as long as they're a strategic thinker.
Yeah.
They're not just going to give a report on this is what our division's doing, but here's where I've been looking at the industry, I looked at our competition, I see the trends, here's where I think logistics is going to be 5 years from now. We need to start preparing for today.
That's crazy. Okay, all right, and then the next thing that we're both very passionate about that you went to, and I'm not surprised this come up, is culture.
Yeah.
And so you brought in HR, but as you think about the future of the company and all the challenges that we're dealing with in today's world, obviously there's not, most organizations in some form or fashion are dealing with the lack of enough people, the lack of retention the way that they want it to be. So culture being a key part of the strategy, what are people doing right and wrong? Or
well, actually, I think it was Drucker that said culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
I'd say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's how you attract great people. It's how you retain great people. It's actually a competitive advantage at two levels. A, it allows you to attract talent. But B, we were talking about undifferentiated strategies. When your product is very similar to your competition's, they just dropped a keg back there. That could be painful.
Oh, here, let's have a drink. That's a good excuse.
To the death of the keg. If your company the product's not that differentiated, sometimes the consumer makes their decision on how well you treat your employees. Do I like this business? Do I like the way they treat their employees? Are they a green company? Do they have a soft footprint? So it can actually be a sales competitive differentiator, huge. Culture, the hardest thing about culture right now with the pandemic is culture at a distance. It's the gazillion-dollar question for people like me is how do you do that? And because it's that connection, the genuine connection, like you and I sitting down, having a beer, relaxing, that you create those ties. And we've been thinking about this a ton, and the answer, and I've looked at some of the best companies I work with, is planned, spontaneous interaction. In other words, I have to put it on my calendar to just call somebody and say, let's chat. Not about business at all. How's your family? Have you played golf lately? What's going on? What's the favorite? But having a conversation to get to know each other better that would normally happen in the hallway to make it happen long distance.
Yeah, okay, so you're ahead of me already. It's no surprise there, because one of my biggest concerns of how we manage culture culture, and I know that all of our business leaders watching are having the same thing, is how do you maintain that hybrid? I mean, you have workers, so the facts in the data shows, and this won't be a surprise to you, is that when people work remotely, their productivity goes up, depending on what they do, by 14 to 44%, which I can attest to, because I don't have the same amount of disruptions, there's not shiny things, the coffee is like, I don't see anybody on the way to get coffee. But the psychological hit, meaning how well people are in their mental state, takes as much as a 50% dive. And so what we all have to do is to figure out how to get people doing. So the planned spontaneous interactions, I mean, that's a really big deal. So what else are you seeing companies do that you think maybe that is a part of the strategy or is a part of the execution that isn't built into the DNA of our companies yet?
So trying to work on that connection, checking in on people a lot just from a mental health standpoint, letting them know it's, I work with a lot of companies right now, I always do, and a lot of the CEOs and senior managers I work with are just incredibly stressed. High levels of anxiety, depression, things like that. One of the things in every class I teach is you've got to be comfortable asking for help. So you've got to create this atmosphere in the organization that if you're under stress or you're anxious or feeling depressed, we want to hear about it. We want to help you. We've got resources to be on your team. So making that clear. I've got one client that 80-something% of their, it's a company like yours, IT company, 80% of their people are remote. But what they do is they have a chili cook-off where if you want to come in, come on in. They said almost everybody shows up for the chili cook-off. So once a month they have a dip-off or a chili cook-off or some sort of a game thing, and everybody comes together and they play and they have all that interaction, so they get to create those bonds, but it isn't every day at the office because people still want to spend most of their time at home where they're very productive without all the chaos around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I can attest to that, and some of the data shows that the companies that are doing this well are creating those interactions cross-team. The culture of the team is usually fairly healthy, but it's the team that interacts across the aisle, if you will, with another team that actually builds the culture of the company, because it's that work product handoff that's so important for organizations to get well, and so extending those interactions beyond just like the core team that you're always talking to anyway.
Yeah, one of the companies I work with does coffee roulette, and they basically spin a thing, and whatever two names in the company show up, you block it a half an hour to meet on the internet or on Zoom or whatever, or Teams. I've never met you before, Thomas. How you doing? What do you do? What part of the company you're in? So and it could be the CEO with a brand new hire. It's just random, putting them together and saying we're gonna force some interaction here to cross culture and cross organization, get people to meet.
I love that. Yeah, so coffee roulette, Zoom roulette. Yeah, very good. Yeah, cool. Any other things that jump out at you in terms of the hybrid workforce? I mean, a lot of organizations are really struggling with office space, and they're really struggling with the connections and things like that. I mean, we're all trying to navigate through it in the best we can. Anything else that you've seen companies really focus on to do that?
Making sure that everybody has the right technology, that they've got everything set up to be able to work smoothly, to get all their work done, understand all the programs, getting them up to speed on Zoom or Teams or whatever thing. Then the other thing is making sure that you only have a meeting when you truly need a meeting, and that only the people that need to be in the meeting are on the Zoom meeting.
Nice.
We're going to cover some stuff early, and then you can bail out. We're going to cover the financials in the first 10 minutes, and then you don't really need to know about what's going on in this other. So take 10 minutes, not sit through an hour where you're in the last 50 minutes. You're going, playing with your dog in the chair.
Exactly. Yeah, good stuff. Well, one of the things that I heard you say about that, and I'm gonna interpret it just a little bit, is that the leadership team, when it comes to mental health, needs to be vulnerable.
Yes.
They've got to be out in front of the organization because it's such a big problem, and it's going to continue to be a big problem, I think, because I mean, the truth is we're asking more of workers than we've ever asked of them because we're short-staffed, and so you have fewer people doing more work, and that that creates tension and stress and everything else. So, so being vulnerable, being out in front, and dealing with it head on. Don't pretend like it's not happening.
No, go the other direction. Assume that it's happening, and show tremendous support, vulnerability. Admit it. I mean, when I'm in front of clients or teaching classes or giving speeches, I say, hey, a lot of us are under pressure. Me too. I'm struggling too. This is hard. I'm tired. It's like running a race where there's no finish line. I mean, if you told me, John, this is going to be over in August 15th, I'd be like, okay, I can pace myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't mention it was 2026. So we don't know. So people don't have a chance to catch their breath. So you've got to let people know from the top of the organization, we're tired too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're stressed and we've asked for help. Make it really safe. Actually make it not just safe, but a badge of honor, actually, to say, hey, I raised my hand because I can't do this by myself.
Right.
I need a little help.
Wow. So I want to run this idea by you that we're running through our organization right now. And so we called it the Work Well Challenge. And so we took, well, you know, it came from the idea that, you know, all these big organizations were saying, well, we want people to come back to work, or we're going to have a 2-day minimum, or we're going to do all of these kinds of things. And our approach was a little bit different. We didn't want to tell everybody what was right for them. So we created a 90-day challenge where the rules were that you have to assume that everything you think you know about hybrid work or in the office work or work from home is wrong. And you have to test everything. So you have to spend time in the office, and you have to spend time at home, and you have to do it, and then you have to report back about what you're finding. And we're about halfway through the challenge, and we don't have an answer to it yet. But I tell you, it has been transformational. And some of the people who had kind of turned into like these recluses, and they're coming to the office, it's like, it's good to see you again. Oh my gosh, I forgot how much fun this is.
Yeah, you're the only company I know that's doing that. That's the first time I've heard of it, and it's a genius idea.
Oh, well, thanks. It's been refreshing. It's been a lot of fun.
I just did, I've been teaching a session at Wharton for about 22 years for the Securities Industry Institute. Wow. All senior executives. Well, I won't say which firm, but one of the firms just said all 10,000 employees must be in the office on Monday. It's our culture, it's the way we do it. I don't care what you do. All 4,500 showed up.
Oh.
And the other ones went, you got a problem with that? And yeah, I happen to be one of the top securities people in the industry, and I can work any place I want to. You want me in the office? Not coming. I'm going to work someplace else.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. You must be in the office, and 40% of the people show up. Pretty strong message to management.
Yes, it is. I love it. Well, what we're learning through that process is that every team is a little bit unique. Everybody's a little bit unique. And so what we have to create as business leaders is the safety, so that people can be who they need to be. And we're serving the whole human from a leadership perspective and respecting their needs, but encouraging them to come in to get the social interactions to make sure that they're happy.
You're hitting on a topic that actually my wife, who's also a business fanatic, my business partner, introduced me to, which is AQ, your Adaptability or Agility Quotient. And it's a really neat idea. I mean, everybody knows IQ, which is not the number, it's your competence level, basically. EQ, which you do a lot of research, is 5 to 10 times more important than IQ. If I'm really competent, but we can't get along with each other, I can't lead you, I can't be on your team.
Right.
So I've got to have that ability to make a genuine connection. But AQ there's a couple factors to it, and you'll enjoy this. The first one is insatiable curiosity. How can I learn more constantly? What's going on? What are the changes? How is the marketplace changing? What's hybrid work like? What's our competition doing? But the other side of AQ is the ability to unlearn quickly. This is what doesn't work anymore. You know, in my own business, what I did 3 years ago does not work today. We had to unlearn a lot of stuff.
I'm sure.
So it's those two things, and right now I would say that the marketplace is forcing AQ to be more important than either EQ or IQ. If you're smart, you get along well with other people, but you can't be nimble, agile, adaptable in the marketplace, it's not going to go so well.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I love the idea of being adaptable in what we're doing in the technology space. I mean, cybersecurity is changing, the application format or platforms are changing, everything is. So it's kind of built into our DNA, but when it comes to culture, it's been a little bit more of a shift because we wanted everybody to come together, but here we are. So we're all learning together. Yeah, very good. What are your favorite tidbits when it comes to organizations that are successful? What are your favorite nuggets that you see organizations do really well? The things that make organizations, when you think back, I mean, because you get exposed to so many companies and you think back, those were awesome to work with.
Yeah.
Well, what are those? What are those?
I've got a few CEOs I've worked with. One in particular I'm thinking about that's my favorite CEO in the world. Let me tell you about how they run their company. Number one is he truly believes that his employees are the most important thing in the company. So when I've worked with leaders, I've got a woman that runs a multi-billion-dollar credit union, $50 billion credit union. All culture, all people. Put your people first. They'll take care of the customers. And I've been doing a lot of research on this lately and interviewed some top CEOs in the world. Here's their order. People first. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers. If you have the right business processes to support your customers and your people, then your financials will be fine. This is the exact opposite of what a bad leader does. Financials first, create the processes to maximize revenue, beat up employees to sell as much as they can to customers, and our numbers will do it. So people first is a big one. Number two is getting the fundamentals right, not making it too complex. There's only a handful of things. Culture, your talent, finding, keeping the best people, owning the voice of the customer, really understanding your customer well, and then being great at disciplined execution. When I look across companies from startups all the way to Apple, they do those four things exceedingly well. And then the last thing, there's actually, I go 52 more, is that the leadership team is a living example of what they want the rest of the company to be. They live the culture, they're values-based, they work with integrity, they truly, honestly care about their employees, and they truly, honestly care about their customers.
No, I love it. And so they represent, they live the core values, hire and fire by the core values, all the way up and down the organization.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I love it. And so I've wondered, and I think what you're saying I absolutely agree with, is really the CEO's job isn't the chief executive officer anymore, it's the chief culture officer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it has to be driven from the top, focused on the people first.
And it's fascinating in companies that struggle, they don't understand at some level how important culture is. It's just this amorphous thing that's out there, it just happens. No, you can't force culture, but you can manage it at some level. You can have impact and influence, hire to it, fire to it, build rituals around it, talk about it all the time, give awards to people that live the culture. One of my top companies I work with had an amazing culture, was a company in Kuala Lumpur that sold tiles. They didn't even make the tiles. And they called the people that sold them Tilenistas. And they were the #1 employer in Kuala Lumpur, had a waiting line of 400 people constantly wanted to work there to sell tiles. Why? Unbelievable culture set directly from the top of the company, permeating down through everybody.
And I'm sure you've got a horror story you could share with us where it's just the opposite.
Oh, I've got too many for that. Yeah.
Companies that just crumble because they don't put any energy into it, where number-driven organizations just ultimately fail.
Yeah, I had one CEO I was working with for a while coaching, and it obviously didn't turn out well. He met with his COO once every 3 months for 1 hour. This is, and the guy's office is literally 20 feet away, and I can only make an hour to talk to my chief operating officer.
Unbelievable.
Oh, well, you wonder why there was conflict, highly dysfunctional leadership team, numbers focus only. He said, we want to be best places to work, but we also want to triple the size of the company. It's about $1 billion company. And I told him these two don't work. If you're going to, it took you 100 years to get to this size. If you think in 10 years you're going to go to 3 billion and have a really happy, joy, fun culture, you are sadly mistaken, because you're going to have to drive people into the ground. At the end of the day, what did he choose?
The numbers.
He chose the numbers. And when I left, the entire executive team when I was terminated, asked to leave, the entire management team had turned over while I was there.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Well, it just beat him into the ground.
Love it. Well, hate
it, but love the understanding.
Love the understanding, yeah. So what do you think that most businesses, when it comes to the day-to-day operations around the culture, what they're weaving in, the conversations that they have, what are they doing right and what are they doing doing wrong? I mean, you said specifically that they're talking about it, they're living it on a daily basis. So, I mean, we start our company meetings talking about our core values. That's how we kick off everyone. Just a simple reminder, it doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but give us...
Do you know that would put you like in the top 1%?
No.
Almost no companies do that. Almost none. It's fascinating. I go to somebody and go, what are your core values for their company? I have no idea. And I'm talking senior leaders. So it has to be woven into, as I said, the culture, the lore, telling stories about people that have lived. Ritz-Carlton is great as this. They have a thing every morning called Lineup. You know, I see you shaking your head, where they bring everybody together and talk about the day, the VIPs they have coming and everything. But they also tell a story about someone in the organization that did something that was an absolute perfect example of living the Ritz-Carlton values. As you said, they mention that they talk about the values. A bunch of companies do that. They give awards for it. They celebrate people. They terminate people who violate the values quickly. It's a big part of hiring, and they use it as a huge internal marketing as well as external marketing. They're marketing constantly, and you don't think about a marketing department marketing internally, but what have we been talking about the whole time? Your employees, as far as a leader goes, your employees are your number one customer.
Absolutely.
So I want to market to them and get excited about it and build programs around it and make it a major part of my organization. You know, I'm happy to spend $3 million on outside advertising and marketing, spend $1 million inside the company, or $100,000 on making sure that you're celebrating the culture. Very few organizations are willing to do that.
Wow. And the impact, because it just has an external impact on the customers, because happy employees, happy team makes for...
Number one factor of highly engaged, satisfied, and loyal customers is engaged, satisfied, and loyal employees.
I love it. So before we jumped in, you told me a story that I want to make sure that we bring to the front about this really cool organization that you work with, and they don't talk about the growth of revenue inside the organization. They talk about how many people they can hire, because they know if they hire good people, they can change their lives. Yeah. Tell us about that. That's such a cool story.
Great. Also, someone from your industry. Every year when and they're very transparent with their numbers. Everybody in the company knows the general numbers. They don't know the salary, but other than that, totally transparent. And as their company gets better and better and drives more revenue, the CEO and the senior couple of owners say, it's not about us making more money, it's about how many more families can we help. And they don't talk about next year we're going to be 57 million. Next year we're going to hire 62 more families that we can help. And that is truly what drives the growth of the company. Not revenue per se or profit per se, people. Helping people, serving their community, doing more good things.
Yeah. And as a result, they're one of the more successful...
99% employee engagement, highly profitable, happy customers, among one of the top companies I've ever worked with in my entire career.
Wow, that is outstanding. I love that story. And I think what we can all learn from our conversation today ultimately is that that strategy is an amazing thing to go through, but it's about executing because people care about a common purpose and where the company is going, getting the culture right, and loving what they do and where they do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen that purpose now has replaced in many organizations title, even pay at some level, is I want to go to work someplace where I know I make a difference. And you know, you said it. I think another thing you do to build a great culture is to show people every day how their work makes a difference in other people's lives, how they're helping the community or what they do. Again, the credit unions I work for. A teller with someone at the drive-thru, you're not giving them money, you're helping them have financial well-being. You're helping them buy their first home, put their kids through college, buy a new car that can get them back and forth to work. When it changes from, I'm not just, cashing checks, I'm helping people have financial peace of mind and financial security in the future, that's a whole different deal to go to work than just counting, money and shoving it through the window.
Well, how do you get people focused on a common purpose? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do in our organization. I know. I mean, I can say one thing in front of the company, and there'll be 50 people in the room or 100 people in the room, and they'll hear 100 different things, even though I use the same words. How do you...
Customers, bring them in.
Bring them in.
Let them talk to you. In some companies, it's easier. I've got a friend that owns a prosthetics company. They make legs for people, and we call it crutch in and walk out. And when somebody gets a new leg, they don't just let them go out the front. They walk them through the entire office. They meet the bookkeepers. They meet the people in shipping. They, all the people that have quote unquote somewhat not very exciting jobs. They get to see the actual impact. Now, it's hard to do that in many companies. But if you can get people in or do testimonials and say, like in IT, you're the backbone of other people's companies. Cybersecurity, you protect their business. These are important things. I don't know if everybody in the company realizes that other companies depend on you to be able to make money to pay their employees.
Right.
And the other thing is, if what the company does isn't really exciting, then maybe you're doing something great in the community. Everybody goes in the breast cancer walk, or we're helping Habitat for Humanity. So maybe the company, we make envelopes, although that could be important, but we do amazing things in the community. That's part of the purpose that drives why I'm involved.
Absolutely. And I think to that story and what we were just talking about, being really vocal about the impact that you're having on people's lives in the business. I mean, so what you produce may not be that sexy, and maybe not, but the fact that you're adding 62 new families to the organization and you're going to impact their lives, that can be highly motivational to people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They get to see those people come on the team, welcome into the family. And this is a place with exceedingly low turnover in an industry that people jump pretty quickly if you can make a little bit more money. And it's not a little bit more money. You can make quite a bit more money if you jump from company to company. But they're like, no, I love it here. I like what I do. I'm paid fairly. We've got all these great people. We're helping all these families. They're also extremely involved in charities in their community. So it's a place where they have a real strong sense of purpose, not just doing IT work.
Love it. Gosh, John, you've shared so much good stuff with us today. I'll just throw on the table. Is there any last thoughts that you want to just throw? I mean, you get exposed to so many amazing organizations and leaders around the world. Just for our audience, what's the...
Can I give personal advice?
Yeah, please.
Most important thing I've ever learned in my life. Ready for that one?
Yeah.
After a guy that reads 100 business books a year, you become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. Whatever you spend your time reading, studying, learning, whatever you fill your brain with, and whoever you choose to spend your time with will directly determine the future of your life, or the future of your life, and actually the future of your company. If you're hiring great people that are high integrity, high values, you're focused on taking care of your customer, taking care of each other, and you've got a great culture, you've built a wonderful company, and you've built a good life to move forward in your profession and with your family.
That's awesome. Well, John, cheers to you.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for earning your journey.
Thank you.